Why is Toyota struggling so badly to recover from the Japanese earthquake? More than Nissan, more than Honda, Mazda, or Subaru. Yesterday, we learned Toyota may have to suspend North American production as early as this month, putting 25,000 people out of work for a while. Few people know Toyota as well as Steven Speer. He's a senior lecturer at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology who's been studying Toyota for years. In fact, Toyota's famous just-in-time supply chain was a big part of Steven's 2008 book, Chasing the Rabbit: How Market Leaders Outdistance the Competition. So, Steven, is that in fact what happened? What was a strength for Toyota just in time became a weakness in this situation?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. So this issue of just-in-time and working a supply chain with very small inventory and very high velocity has been marked as one of Toyota's great strengths. When Toyota has encountered difficulty, whether it's a man-made disaster like a supplier plant burning down or a natural disaster like the Kobe earthquake, people are very quick to point fingers and suggest that this is actually a source of not strength but vulnerability. I think time and again what Toyota has proven is that its ability to be just in time is based on a capacity for very, very high speed problem solving. And what's been proven out again, time and again, is that this capacity for very high speed system design, problem solving, continuous improvement, and that sort of thing allows them to get through catastrophe far better with much greater integrity than most other organizations.
Did Toyota make a mistake, let's say, by choosing to source so many of its components from Japanese suppliers? We took a look at the Toyota supply chain here earlier on the show and found that a couple of them, in fact, Toyota Tsusho and Toyota Gosai, are actually vertically integrated parts of the Toyota family.
Yeah, a very good question. So the thing about Toyota is that historically Toyota was and certainly through the 1980s, a company that viewed itself and was viewed by the world as a manufacturer in Japan that exported to the other regions of the world. Toyota has undergone tremendous growth by sales volume, sales revenue since the 1980s. What we see is a fairly consistent attempt by Toyota to, I think the term is locally globalize, said differently, become increasingly self-sufficient in each of its regional markets, self-sufficient in terms of design and production. The thing is, all of that takes time, and so it's one thing to build an assembly plant in Kentucky and West Virginia, California, Canada, wherever else you might do it. But building out the first, second, and third tiers of a supply chain does take time. It's an effort I think Toyota has been making for the last 20 years. But again, there are still some vulnerabilities, and this local globalization, this attempt to become self-sufficient regionally, is an incomplete project.
So will anybody be immune, Steven? You know, we talk about how much Toyota has been impacted, but we also took a look at some companies like Denso, a Japanese company that makes things like spark plugs and air conditioners, cruise control systems, airbags. For a host of companies, it has 39 customers, pretty much every major auto manufacturer in the world, and Denso has suspended some of its production in Japan. So would you expect companies like Denso, not necessarily Denso itself, but to cause similar production problems down the line at Ford, at Fiat, at General Motors, at Kia, for example? They're all among Denso's customers.
Yeah, so I think you hit on an excellent point, is that as you start getting into the second and third level of the supply chain in the automotive industry, and this is actually probably true for any advanced high-tech industry like the automotive sector, is that there are certain key suppliers who, because they have some special knowledge, special skill, proprietary technology, they're actually a linchpin not only for one end producer, but for everybody. And so we get a situation like Denso where it turns out everyone is vulnerable to them.
One last question, Steven. How much of a factor is the character, the culture of Toyota an issue here? We saw how poorly, I think we'd all agree, Toyota responded to the recall crisis scandal here in the United States. Was there similar paralysis in the decision-making apparatus at Toyota after the Japanese quake?
Right, great question. So I think the thing with Toyota is that internally they are exceptional, and of all the dozens and dozens of companies I've studied, their capacity for internal problem solving is unparalleled. In the case of the recall, I think we saw a really great difficulty communicating their message to the outside market and outside stakeholders. I think in this case that, apples to apples, that Toyota's capacity for internal problem solving, renewal, and innovation, invention, that sort of thing, is going to really help them get through this crisis. And just an addendum to this, this is actually a far earlier test of the capacity of General Motors and Chrysler restructured to do well. I mean, we all thought that this was going to be a 2, 3, 4-year test as they introduced new products and saw how they were received in the marketplace. But a disruption in the supply chain is something that a company should have the capacity to repair, and we'll see just how well GM and Chrysler are able to do that going forward post-restructuring.
Indeed, Stephen, we will be watching to see whether GM and Chrysler can do as well as you expect Toyota to be able to do on the back half of this quake-induced crisis. Stephen Spear, a senior lecturer at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, talking to us about Toyota and the automotive supply chain here in the Inside Track.